Welcome to this episode of HALA Chat.
HALA Chat. So, we've had some recent exciting news in Ateenyville, or Tiny Town, which is, as of last, I believe it was last Friday, which would have been June 21st? Yeah, June 21st in the U.S. ATEEZ finally got their individual Instagram accounts. Finally. And so we thought we would discuss, we would have a chat about the things that have been posted, about maybe the history, the lore behind Instagram.
If you had asked me who would be the person to post the most on Instagram, never in a million years would I have said Jungho. But here we are.
Here we are.
You know, and I think you felt the same way, that I was not like super into them having their own Instagrams.
Well, the entire fandom disagreed with you.
And I disagree with me too. Well, that's actually not even true. It's not that I was against them having individual Instagrams. I really didn't care. What I didn't like was the idea that they were going to be forced to do something that they might not want to do. I wanted them to do whatever they wanted to do. So if some people wanted individual Instagrams, great, they could have one. But I didn't want all of the members to have to do it if that's not what they wanted to do. As someone who does have to maintain an Instagram, I find it pretty tiring.
Right.
So I didn't want anyone to have to do it.
Well, let's start with the lore. Let's start with the background information. So the fans had been asking, they've been talking about it. They really want it. A lot of people have been, we really want them to have them. It's one of those things that every time they trend the KQ Do Better hashtag, it's one of the list of KQ's sins is that they are, quote unquote, keeping ATEEZ from having their own Instagram accounts.
Right.
And it magnified after Stray Kids got theirs.
Right.
But it really intensified at that time and became like a divisive issue. And so many people were talking about how the members were being held back because they didn't have their own Instagram accounts.
Right.
And
like they weren't going to get brand deals.
They weren't going to get brand deals. Even though Hongjoong did get one in the way that Balmain does his brand deals. But somehow, like, the not having the Instagram accounts was just going to ruin all of their opportunities. Somehow.
As if ATEEZ hasn't had incredible opportunities already in 2024. Like, we are off 2 major festival performances. A thing that I noticed, and I guess that really bothers me, this is always why I had an issue with people wanting the individual Instagrams, is that it seems like the fandom believes that there are certain boys who will maintain an excellent feed, and they want to see what kind of feed that boy will come up with. And, like, to me, you've already taken the fun out of Instagram if you're, like, waiting for, I'm going to pull a boy at random. If you're waiting for Songhwa to make the most amazing feed, then, like, you've given Songhwa a job, not a fun thing to share about his life. You know, the big solo fans are expecting something specific from these Instagrams as opposed to just like a place to communicate with fans. And that goes for all the boys, across all the boys. Like, I want to see what Mingi's feed looks like. I don't know. Just let Mingi post his stuff. Like,
well, it's so interesting you should say that.
I know.
Because, of course, fans demanded it. They wanted it so badly. We finally got it on Friday.
Because, real quick, KQ almost always gives Atiny what they want eventually. Sometimes it's not for the best. Sometimes it's not in the way they expect, but KQ always listens eventually. They always say what a bad company KQ is, but in the end, KQ always tries to make Atiny happy.
It's because KQ isn't a big company. That is the thing. They can't do the things that big companies can do so easily. But that's a whole different topic. But it's interesting. A couple things that you said that I think are very interesting to me. That first of all, as soon as we got these Instagram accounts, one of the first things that I saw some Atiny do was kind of making fun of the way that KQ announced it. Like, KQ gave us a spreadsheet. They're like, look, Here they all are. Here's everybody. These are the official ones. They have our approval. Y'all go follow whoever you want. And people were like, why? Who announces it like this? And I'm like, what's wrong with the way that they announced it? Why must we nitpick every single little thing? Like, they gave us an easy access with links to all of the accounts. You didn't even have to, like...
I super appreciated it.
I thought it was great. I'm like, everybody should do it like this. Like, we shouldn't have to wonder if the person that I'm following is the real person or not. It just, like, it should be all right there for me, fed to me from the company.
I liked that it was on the Instagram post too, like the Instagram post announcing it. I just clicked on all of those and followed all of them, and I didn't even have to think about it.
Right. Then the next bit of drama was the OT8 versus solo stan conversation. You know, you're not a real atiny if you're not following all 8, which I do feel that way myself, but whatever.
My heart also agrees.
So there was all this discourse about, well, some members are just going to be more popular and everybody else should just shut up about it. And I'm like, I'm also on that side. We don't need to keep talking about it. It doesn't. And one person very specifically was like, well, Sun's going to be the most popular and Jungkook's going to be the least popular. And I got all rankled about that because I was like, how dare you?
Right.
Jungkook's going to have the best feed. It's going to be so great. It's going to be so upsetting. How dare you be like this to my sweet Jungkook? Why would you do this?
I, for my sanity, have not a single time went to look at any of their followers. I don't want to know. I don't want to know if Jungho has less followers than the rest of the members of ATEEZ, because that will just upset me if he does. Right. Any atiny worth being an atiny has also followed Jungho, and that's how I feel. So,
right. If you haven't, then you are some sort of solo or duo stan. That's my opinion.
And I think it's a good one, so...
So there was that. But then there came the bigger controversy. Where San went on live. And he was just chatting the way that he does. And he talked about how before they had the Instagram accounts, KQ had a whole meeting with everybody. And they talked about everybody's like brand and how they were going to present themselves on social media. And he talked about how the staff were talking about his duality, how he's got this very fierce image on stage, but very cute image off stage. And they said, you should show both sides. That was what they said. ATEEZ, of course, took this and absolutely ran with it. And we're so upset because KQ was already taking all the fun out of Instagram. Why can't the boys just post whatever they
out of it? ATEEZ took the fun out of Instagram first.
ATEEZ take the fun out of everything, genuinely. But they you know, how dare KQ try to control them? KQ is so stupid. Why is KQ doing this? And like every single sensible person was like, y'all, they're a brand. Like every company does this. They're and plus, San never said that he wasn't allowed to post whatever he wanted. I think based on the feeds that we're seeing so far, they can post whatever they want. And I think that all of this stems from a misconception that I feel like a lot of this, like the argument about the talk and the free lives and all of this, and it is that people don't understand that this is their job.
Right.
These are not their personal accounts. These are their individual accounts. So when they are posting on their official Instagram accounts, they are still working.
The other thing is that we live in a world where, like, normal people think about this type of stuff too. Like, I have a public-facing job, have had one for many years, have had one in the past, and I have often been like, what is my brand? What do I want my social media to say about me? I would have loved KQ to gather me up and present me with some options. Like, I don't know. What is my brand, KQ? You tell me. Like, that's hard to do, and, like, normal people do it too. Even I, like, think about still, like, well, what do I want my Instagram to say? What do I want people to know about me? People who don't know me, what do I want them to know about me? And I think that's the type of world we live in, is that all people have a brand, regardless of their idol status or not. So the fact that they got this, like, brand training, I would take that, like, I've been to conventions where I took that class. Like, I just think that's so beyond normal to think about, what do I want my feed to say to me? They haven't been responsible for maintaining this aspect of their public persona before. So telling them the best ways to do it, what people like, that's all incredibly helpful as a person who has to do social media. I would love that.
Right. I mean, it sounds very much like they just wanted to set them up for individual success on the platform. Like, even the original translation that I read did not strike me as them trying to be controlling. It was them trying to say, here's how Instagram works, because you haven't really been using it publicly. But then they released an updated, like a translation with context, because it was that what account it was that got everybody all riled up.
Yes, I know.
It's always the same one.
I'm so tired of them. I blocked them finally.
Yeah, I didn't even know that it was that account until I saw people replying to them under somebody saying, okay, y'all, come on now. This is a brand thing. Also, here's the context for everything that he said. Which San even said in his live that he had a lot of fun with the conversation, and he was really grateful for their guidance. And even with the new context, somebody was rolling up in the quotes like, oh man, y'all will just like anything. I wish you'd defend ATEEZ with this much passion or whatever. And I'm like,
I do when they need it.
Defend them from you people? Because I feel like that's who I'm defending. ATEEZ. Like, I'm not. Obviously, I don't say anything on social media. But if I were, I would just be fighting with other ATEEZ all the time.
I mean, we've talked about this before. Like, this idea that I personally know exactly what ATEEZ wants. Is such a pervasive attitude on Twitter that they know exactly what ATEEZ wants. They know exactly how ATEEZ wants to do something. And of course ATEEZ wants to do it that way because that's how this person wants to do it. And if anyone would do it different than this person, then that they would be wrong. So this must be what ATEEZ wants. And so if it doesn't happen that way that one single person wanted, then ATEEZ is being held back. ATEEZ isn't getting to do what they want to do, which is crazy. I don't know what ATEEZ wants, and I don't, like, all I can do is go off of what they have told me. If they have not expressed any unhappiness, then why would I argue against whatever is happening to them? So there's nothing to defend unless ATEEZ tells me something is wrong.
Right.
Or shows me in some meaningful way. So there's nothing to defend because they have not done either of those things to my knowledge. If someone has, like, real evidence, sure, bring it to me.
Well, define real. If it's real to me.
Like, when people prove time and again that they are trying to do their best, I'm not going to fault them if they fail or if their best doesn't reach my standard, you know? Like, sometimes just trying is good. And, like, I think KQ's meeting with ATEEZ shows that they're trying to take care of them. They're trying to help them. They're trying to set them up to be successful on Instagram. And they have had many successes on Instagram already. Like, all of their feeds are fun in different ways. I mentioned Jungho. Like, I didn't think he would have much interest in Instagram, but I was wrong. I'm happy to admit that. He seems to, like, enjoy posting little jokes, being able to, like, post silly stuff. Like, I didn't expect him to do an Instagram because I guess I didn't have a big enough imagination to imagine how he would do it. But it's very him. It's so, like, you know, he's not going to be the one posting those, like, rock star pictures every day. I mean, he's got them. There are rock star pictures of Jungho out there, but that's not his vibe that he gives off. He's, like, hilarious. So his Instagram shows that so well.
I think this was such a good time for them to release them. I would say if there were another good time, it would have been right before Coachella. but that they release them at a time when they're all excited. They're about to do something brand new that nobody else has done before. They're about to go off on a trip.
Able to get pretty pictures.
Yeah, beautiful scenery. There
are beautiful.
A lot of eyes on them because of, because Mawazine is so big, and, the people have been talking about it, and that they were headlining it, and they picked a time when all of them were like in great moods, except for Woo Young, of course, which is deeply, deeply sad and tragic.
Yeah.
But I mean, he seems in decent enough spirits. But
he does.
But at a time when they're doing fun things and they're all excited, they're in good moods, and I do think that their feeds, the way that they are so far, are reflecting that.
Yeah.
That, they're happy, they're doing fun things. I'm holding all of my judgment for now because I think, a lot of them, they've put a lot of thought into leading up to, it sounds like they've been preparing for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's been in the works for a while, and they had a lot of time to figure out what they wanted their names to be and all of that, and I am waiting to see how things pan out. I'm waiting to see, are they still going to have this same level of enthusiasm for maintaining feeds as time goes on, and as they kind of get back into like their normal work, whatever their normal work is.
Right.
If they ever do get back to a point where they're just kind of in Korea doing the small Korea things that they do in between the big actual things like tours and festivals and that sort of thing. I'm curious to see what it looks like when they have actual downtime, because it's been a long time since they've had like a long period of downtime.
Yeah. I mean, I think they had like a couple week vacation before Coachella, well before Coachella, and then after Coachella I think they had a couple days.
Yeah.
And then it was like the comeback stuff. But I'm sure we'll ebb and flow, right? Like I too post on Instagram more when I'm doing something fun.
Right. Well, because that's the aesthetic look that you want to show everybody. Like that's the stuff you want to share.
When I'm chilling at my house on my couch, I don't often post about it.
Yeah. Like it's not the rotting page. So I'm curious to see, who's going to keep up this level of enthusiasm. So that's my question, is like, let's make some predictions.
Okay.
Who do you think is going to be the most consistent over the long term?
I think there's two different things. There's a feed and there's stories, right? Who will maintain their feed and who will be active on stories, I think is a different question. And just kind of seeing how they are and their attitudes right now. I think Jungho's going to keep up the stories. I think he thinks that's fun. I think it's like, he gets to tell little jokes in them. I think he enjoys that. I think we'll see a lot of stories from Jungho. As far as like maintaining a feed though, I don't know that that's going to be where his passion lies. Maybe it is, but I think we'll see, I think Hongjoong is the most obvious choice because he was already the one who was posting on Instagram the most. I think perhaps Mingi. So those would be my two, Hongjoong and Mingi for the feed, and I think Jungho will keep up his stories. I also think Yoonho might be very story focused eventually. I don't want to talk about Yoonho's story.
We don't speak of it. It never happened. See, imagine if you were one of those people who was who wasn't following all the members.
Yeah.
Like if you weren't following you would have missed out on being murdered visually with the glory that is the adorableness. I agree. I do think that Hongjoong will probably maintain a decent feed because we've seen him do that before. Plus, he already has like an established kind of connection to the fashion world. So
right.
I am expecting that to continue. I'm expecting to see some very interesting Bamon looks. I'm very excited. Mingi too, I can see. I think Songhwa might also, especially if we can get him a brand deal, some sort of fashion connection as well. Because I do think he should be the next one. Him or Mingi, I think, would do very, very well.
And Songhwa does have a very like aesthetic vibe in his pictures when he posts, so I could see that too.
Yeah. Stories wise, I don't really have any sort of feelings or opinions about stories either way. I do think Jungho will have a lot of fun with those, like you said. And I've also been surprised by how much he's been playing around with it. I don't read it as he's been held back up to this point and wishes he could have been posting more. I think he's just been handed a new toy and he's having a good time.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works out. As far as predictions for who's going to forget that Instagram exists the fastest, my guess is going to be Yeosang.
Interesting.
I just, I don't know. I just feel like he's going to be not super sure what he's supposed to do with this or what is expected of him. Although he may surprise us and have like a really, I feel like he's going to go one way, like either way. Like either he's going to have like a super aesthetic feed with maybe an occasional story, or he's just going to be like, wait, Instagram? I completely forgot that was a thing.
I was going to say San, which I know will upset many people, but I have always gotten the vibe that San is a pretty private person. As myself, a pretty private person, it can be really hard to get comfortable posting on Instagram. I've reached the point where I can. Like, it's pretty easy now. But I think if you're not willing to put in that work, or if you don't like want to or have like a reason to, I think it can be pretty hard for a private person to get comfortable using Instagram. I think if he used it, it would be very successful. I think that he might struggle to do so, and thus would put it on a back burner.
I mean, he seems to really enjoy chatting with people more than he does, because he doesn't even post like selfies that often, like on the main feed. Which I've got data. I could show people the data. That he just doesn't post that often.
Bobby keeps a very incredible Google Drive archive where she updates every picture that they post. She puts in. I've used it many times. It saved me many times from having to like look for a photo. I just scroll through the Google Drive.
A weird obsession. I don't know what little button in my brain that it pushes when I collect all those photos and squirrel them away in a folder. Part of it was that there was the scare that when Elon took over Twitter that he was going to destroy the platform, and I was like, I got to get these pictures before they're gone.
I don't know that he hasn't, if I'm honest.
I mean, it is still chugging along, but so I do have an archive, and I could go and I can tell you when San is most happy with his hair and when he's not happy with his hair. It's very, very clear, and I will tell all the people, all you chestnut haters out there, he posted so many selfies in his chestnut era. He loved that hair, and I don't want to hear it. Okay? He looked fantastic.
Yeah, this is a pro-chestnut podcast.
I am very pro-chestnut. Pro-chestnut specifically. It's actually one of my favorite San hairstyles.
I think this is obviously off topic because we were talking about Instagram, but you know, why not? I think that his face suits the chestnut so well. He has such good face structure.
Beautiful.
Like his jaw, his cheeks, like it's immaculate. He looks as if he was carved from stone. And when he has that short chestnut hair, all of that is just heightened. It is so good. It is such a good look for him. I hope if that is what he wants with his hair, I hope he has it every single day.
It looks so great. And I can tell you, he doesn't like it when his hair is like an unnatural color.
Yeah, he didn't like the red hair at all.
He did not like the red hair at all.
Fast.
He was like, I am done with this. I'm finished. He hasn't liked the blue hair. He kept the fuchsia for fireworks for a long time,
well,
but toned it down.
Imitation, wasn't it?
Right, because he needed it for imitation. But he toned it down pretty quickly, and then went to that really nice, like warm, like a mulberry kind of color for Dreamers. Looked really, really good, and then went back to the black. So anyway, so I can see his feed being sporadically, like if he's having a really good hair time. He liked the blonde too. He waved more than Gorilla, but he did really like that blonde look as well. So just FYI.
Well, he looked like a very cool action star. I just it was a good vibe for him.
Why did he never jump out of a helicopter? I really specifically wanted that from that look.
In my head, I remember back to that trailer. You know, the like the black and white, and like he's running, and can't you see it in your mind's eye? Him hopping out of a helicopter into that run, like I can see it. It's like it happened. Like I just
definitely. I know that what I am thinking of is Kai from the Jopping music video. But in my heart and in my mind, my brain just superimposes San right over Kai, and he is hanging out of that chopper and getting ready to jump down and run away from some guardians. Like that is the storyline in my head, and then the key you just refused to give to me. I think people are also hoping for lives on Instagram as well.
I think people are hoping. I'm not. When they made Talk more accessible and there was a lot more comments, the comments were worse. Yeah. And I, like, that sucks that that's true, because I'm sure that there are just as many people who joined who were normal. But it is true that the lower the bar to entry, and there is no bar for entry in Instagram,
right,
the more people of all types will be there. And it is also often true that people who are rude are the loudest.
Yeah.
So I don't look forward to Instagram lives that would be free.
I don't expect them to do them. I don't expect them to either. They already have a platform for that.
And they have a platform for chatting. And like, Talk is a platform that makes them money. I don't know how much, probably not a ton, but it makes them money. So they're going to prioritize that because, again, social media is their job. And if you're going to do your job, are you going to do your job in a way that gets you paid? Or are you going to do your job in a way that doesn't get you paid? Right. So Talk is going to be their priority as far as lives go. And then they have From, which is a contractual obligation, I'm sure. So they're going to use From for their direct messages.
I have resisted getting From because I don't want another thing to keep track of. But I'm like, y'all going to keep putting stuff over on From and like having conversations. Like I really wished I had been following Woo Young on From when I was watching Mawazine, because his messages would have been so hilarious to follow along with. But
it's
sadly,
very cute.
I didn't expect him to actually, because I knew when ATEEZ were like, hey, can Woo Young watch with the rest of us? Let's have a watch party. I didn't expect him to actually do it, because I was like, it's going to be like 5 o'clock in the morning for him. Let's let the man rest.
It's nice that he did. It's so cute.
It's so precious.
Fun.
I am glad that he did it. He did seem to have like a good time and chatting with other people. But I was thinking beforehand when ATEEZ was like, oh, he would love to do that with us. I'm like, well, yeah, to a certain extent, but y'all are still his job. Can y'all please remember that you are his job? Like, it is really lovely when they talk about how great we are and how much they love being around us and how much they love talking to us and all of that, but we are still their job.
Absolutely. I mean, I think watching Mawazine with ATEEZ makes sense, because he should have been, he would have been performing, and that would be his job. So now he's just doing his job in a different way. And so that's kind of nice for him. It gives him a way to do his job and connect with his audience and his fans. Like, I would never say that ATEEZ doesn't like talking to their fans, because I think that they do. I think that's gratifying for them. Yeah. So I think it's really nice that he was able to have that sort of gratification of the fandom without performing, since he was unable to perform. Obviously, I'm sure he would have loved to have performed more, because it's Woo Young. He loves performing, but...
Well, he said that in the chat. Yeah. He was like, I want to be up there.
He's a born performer. I still think it's nice that he was able to participate, at least in some small way, with the group. I think that was meaningful to him. I would never expect that from all of the boys, but I think it would be meaningful to Woo Young. Yeah. Personally, I would just, lay down, but they're better than me in all ways.
I think it would have been almost kind of sadder for me to, like, watch it happening, knowing that, like, I'm supposed to be there. Which I do think
be completely reasonable, but...
Yeah, I think he did feel that in a certain way, but I think he did seem to have a good time chatting with people and being there and having people to react with, since he couldn't react with ATEEZ at the time, since they were literally on stage for most of it.
And probably most of the people that he normally hangs out with were not there either. I mean, like, not in the hangout sense. Like, he's got friends and stuff, but
it was early in the morning.
And the managers were there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm sure they spend a lot of time with their managers, and, like, the people that he would normally react to with that kind of stuff just weren't around.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, at 5 o'clock in the morning, can't do much.
No. I was able to watch Mawazine live.
I was not, and it was upsetting.
It was incredible. I do have thoughts, feelings, and opinions specifically about Jungho's jacket, along with just the concept for the outfits for everybody.
Right.
I actually have some critiques. If I'm being very honest, I've got some critiques about that. And because for once, like, sometimes, like, the styling will just be not my vibe, and I can't quite put my finger on what is the problem. With this one, I know exactly what the issue is that I have.
But it is not with Jungho's jacket, correct? It is? Oh. Well, Jungho and I are disappointed.
No, I've got... No. I think that you will understand when I explain, like, what my issues are. Like, when I look at Jungho with everybody else, there's a disconnect in the styling. Because I think the jacket on its own is very beautiful. I love the detailing on it. The buckles on the sleeves are my favorite part. I think they went a little bit overboard with draping him in the sails.
That was the part for me.
I just felt a little bit distracted. I felt like it was slightly too oversized when you compared it with what everybody else was wearing, because what everybody else was wearing was distinctly more fitted and a lot more shorter jackets, particularly for our tall boys, which I've gone on record. I love a short jacket on a tall boy. I think they look so nice. And I think, you know, Mingi in particular looked excellent. I loved what Songhwa was doing. He was very romantic. Yeosang, of course, also very romantic vibe. Hongjoon had an excellent jacket. San, of course, another excellent jacket. But I felt like with everybody else wearing these very fitted garments, even like someone had, like, everybody's got like the flowy bits because the stylists love a flowy bit. But with everybody else wearing these very fitted with flowy, Jungho, when I look at him with everybody else, he did stand out because he was much more boxy. So I feel like the jacket was just slightly too oversized. I would have loved a shorter jacket for him with, like, the same details and everything. The colors were fine. I think what it looked like was great, but I would have liked something shorter for him instead of the boxy. Yeah. So that was my issue with it, was just the fit with everybody else.
Like the overall composition.
Right. It felt unbalanced to me. If there had been more other people in boxy outfits, which they've done before, and I think they do look good when you've got more of a mix. But it did feel like he stood out a little bit too much in a way, as in, like, not quite vibing with everybody else. And two, my second point of contention with the styling. Okay, you look at Songhwa. He's got the very romantic with the flowy and the vest, and I think that with him and Yeosang in particular, they had like a pattern.
Yes.
On there, it was like a very subtle, almost kind of like a floral or something, or like almost like a tie-dye, but like with really subtle, I think it was very light pastel colors. But when you look at it from a distance, particularly with the terrible stream quality, it looked dirty. And so Songhwa and Yeosang in particular looked like they were wearing kind of like a stage costume. And Jungho a little bit. He didn't look dirty specifically, but he was going for more of the muted tones. Yeah. When I looked at them, they looked wildly different from the other boys who were wearing like black and metallic sparkles. And so I was like, well, if there had been a little bit more mix and match, if the sparkly boys had a little bit more of like the roughly the floral, whatever that pattern was, like I could see it on Yeosang when you got close to him, the thing he had wrapped around his chest and wrapped around the back. Like, I liked the look of the fit, but I didn't like that I couldn't tell what that pattern was, and that from a distance it just made it look like a tea-stained. When I saw Songhwa's, I'm like, is he wearing something tea-stained? What is going on? Like, he looks like a junk journal right now. So I felt like I liked the overall vibe. I love, as soon as they got up there, I texted Rachel. It was like pirate fashion. It's back. I was so excited. And so like the overall, like my initial is very favorable, and overall it still is very favorable. I think they all looked amazing, but I just kind of, as a set, I wish there had been a little bit more cohesion and less of a big divide between, like, this person is wearing sparkly bolero and this person's wearing boxy sail. He's wearing a full sail.
He was wearing a full sail.
He really was. He was wearing it very well, but he felt very weighted down where nobody else felt weighted down.
I know that Jung Ho does favor a boxier cut. Even in his short jackets, he often will go for a boxier cut. I assume that's his choice as opposed to...
I assume too, and as much as I love everything about him, and he's never done anything wrong in his entire life.
Correct.
I feel like this was a slight misstep for him. I would have loved to see more of a billowy white shirt situation with him, or a billowy black shirt. Something, also, he just looks so hot.
I was looking at those outfits and thinking to myself, please, for the summer tour, please, short sleeves. Please. I know you love a jacket, Jung Ho. I know you do. And you look great in them. He looks so good in a jacket.
He wears a jacket so well.
But he has to put on short sleeves when he comes to Texas and Georgia and Arizona. He'll just pass out. I just don't. I worry a lot. But they do that. They do that all the time. At summer shows, they're like in leather jackets and you're like, well, I don't know. You could wear less. And you don't have to wear nothing. But you could wear less. You could still wear a shirt, but maybe not a jacket. It's hot. And you're going to be dancing.
I mean, I know that I did hear somebody, I don't remember who it was or what like interview it was or what podcast it was, but somebody was talking about the fabrics that they use for their costumes on stage and how they often will use like polyesters and other synthetic fabrics simply because they look better under the lights than like cottons and silks and linens. So that does make sense. I do think that they're picking fabrics, they're picking looks that are going to look really, really good underneath the lights. It's the same reason that the stylists are always draping them in extra like in flowy bits, because they look nice when they're moving around and dancing.
Right.
It kind of gives you some movement for your eyes to follow. I mean, I was looking at Jung Ho's jacket because I was trying to figure out what kind of fabric it was, because at some point it looked like suede, and I was like, what? I don't think it's suede. And then when you look at it closer, it gives more of like a canvas kind of vibe. So maybe it's like a gabardine or something like that. But he sweat like all through that jacket. He was so warm.
Yeah, like I texted you and I was like, because I watched it afterwards, thanks to this kind soul who uploaded the whole thing to Twitter. So I watched it afterwards and I like texted you and said, these are the hottest boys that have ever existed. They are so hot.
They were very, very sweaty, and I'm like, I don't know what the weather is like in Morocco. I'm sure that it's warm.
I was like in the middle of watching it, like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes into the like 1 hour performance. And I was like, what if I start crying during Say My Name? Like, it was so good. And I think that's the thing about ATEEZ. Anytime I watch them, I'm like, they really just are that good. They're just that good.
And like the greatest atiny privilege is never having to worry.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to worry that something's going to go wrong, or somebody's going to be lip syncing, or somebody's going to be like super off tune, or like, you know, they're just going to do amazingly well. And I feel like anytime there's a member missing, they give a little extra oomph to try to make up for the fact that there's a member missing.
I agree.
I mean, it was very obvious that Woo-young wasn't there. You know, he was clearly missed. Like, you didn't get to hear his live vocals. But they also cover for missing members so well, because they don't give you enough time to be able to process the fact that Woo-young isn't there, even though they didn't even really like change the choreography. Like, the parts where Woo-young was supposed to be center, they just left it blank. And I like that they did that, and I think it makes sense for you know, like they didn't do that when Mingy was gone because he was gone for an extended period of time. And if they were going to perform anything from when he had been there, they were going to have to cover for him repeatedly.
Right.
But since this is just like the one performance that he's missing, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's just the one performance that he's missing, it made sense and felt a little bit more poignant that they just didn't try to fill the space that he was leaving behind, except for when Song will cover the Pati Pati part in Crazy Form.
Yeah, which was very good.
It was very good. He did great.
They all do try to make up for an absence of a member. Like, obviously, obviously a member can't be missing and have, like, the full impact. It just is impossible. But they, like, work extra hard. I remember watching when Jungho was, like, injured during the LA concert and he left the stage. Like, you could tell they were working so hard to try to, like, cover that absence in their sound, because at that point they didn't have the backing track on, because when Jungho sings in a concert they don't have the backing track on.
Why would they need it? He's there.
so like with the first song that he didn't come out, his part came on and it just was, there was nothing. It was horrible, but like they worked so hard to like bring that energy, which I think is so admirable, because like those are also their friends, and surely they're missing them, so they're kind of like putting aside their own whatever they feel to make sure that the people watching are having the best possible time they can under this circumstance. And I don't think they could have, the only way this show could have been better is if with Woo Young there.
Right.
Without him, like, they did the best they could do, and it was fantastic.
It's always fantastic. Somehow.
It's so good. They're so good. I don't have words. They're so good every single time, and it is amazing to watch. Like, you think you remember how good they are, and then you watch them, and you're like, I didn't remember.
It's been a minute since I've seen. I was so excited for Mawazine, and then after I finished, like after it was over, and like normally when you watch an ATEEZ performance, it's generally in the middle of the night. Like you're gonna go back to bed after that, because what else is there for you to do? How can you exist in this world now that this performance is over? Yeah. But yesterday, the performance ended, and there was still, it was like 7 o'clock. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with, it actually was probably closer to 8. I was like, what am I supposed to do with myself now? What do I do? What do I watch? What fills the void that's left behind after an ATEEZ performance when I can't go to bed yet?
I've obviously gone to like a lot of concerts, like different types of artists. I've seen many concerts in my life. I have never experienced anything like watching an ATEEZ show. They just put it all out there, and you feel it too. Actually, I was talking to someone the other day, and they were telling me that they can no longer perform because of like disability, hurt themselves. So they just don't have the ability to perform as they used to. But they said that when ATEEZ performs, it feels like they're performing. And I feel that. Like, I remember the first time I saw ATEEZ in person, like, I almost started crying.
I do too. ATEEZ has this way of making the audience feel like they are also part of the show. I wrote about my first concert experience. Like, I wrote a blog post, or a Reddit post at the time. I wrote a Reddit post, and so I have been able to like go back and look at it and see how I felt at that time, which is really cool. I liked being able to do that, but in my memory and what I wrote, it's different. In my memory, they played Say My Name first. I went to sound check, and I listened to Say My Name, and it was, my heart exploded, and like tears formed. Like, that's how I remember it. And it was so incredible to see Say My Name and see them perform it. Say My Name was probably one of the first ATEEZ songs I heard. I heard it on like a Pandora playlist. And I will just like never forget how I felt.
I do have the details wrong. Like, I've looked at the blog post. They played Wave, and then they played Say My Name. That's fine. That's not the way I remember it. So I'll just go with my memory, which is Say My Name. And, like, I just remember feeling so overwhelmed. And, like, when it was over, I was, like, bouncing. I was giddy. And, like, I didn't interact with ATEEZ, right? This wasn't, like, ATEEZ has this whole... or atiny, I should say. Atiny has this whole fandom culture about barricade, and maybe it's a K-pop thing and not really an atiny thing, but, like, it's not worth it to go to a concert if you can't have barricade, and I want these, like, personal one-on-one moments, and I want ATEEZ to notice me and wave at me from afar. I don't give a shit if ATEEZ sees me at all. My first time seeing them, the sound check, I was not up front. I did not get any personal interactions. I was so giddy by the time I walked out of that room. I was texting everyone. I felt like I could fly. And that night, after the concert, my friend and I bought tickets to go to LA. Like, it was so good that we had to see them again. And where did we sit in LA? In the nosebleeds. We flew to LA for the nosebleeds. It's that good. Their shows are that good. Like, I can't believe that they're so talented to, like, have that kind of power. And I'm amazed all the time. Like, there's just not another group like them.
I mean, I know we're biased, but also I think we're right.
Biased.
I think we are correct.
Is it bias if we're just right?
I mean, we are just right. I do think that's why they are so powerful, particularly at the festivals. They just bring an energy that is infectious. And that every single time they do one of these festival shows, one of my favorite things is to go and look at, on Twitter, the people talking about, I don't stand them. I don't know who they are, but they were so good and I really enjoyed them. And there have been a lot of comments from Mawazine from people who are like, I don't really follow them. I don't really know much about K-pop, but they were a really excellent show. And I think that speaks volumes.
I think that's the thing. It's an excellent show, which is kind of what we had talked about the other day. People will go to the ATEEZ's concerts who are not fans of ATEEZ because ATEEZ now has a reputation for putting on an excellent show. If you go to an ATEEZ show, you will have a good time. Even if you don't like their music, like, even if you're wrong and you have bad taste in music, you can go to an ATEEZ show and you can have a nice time.
Which is so wild to me that so many people think that you can't unless you are right up at barricade. I just don't. I feel like I wouldn't really be able to enjoy the actual show if I'm that close.
Well, we're going to do it once, so
well, I mean, but then I get to see the show 3 more times after that. So that I don't have to enjoy the show. I can just be there for vibes.
Yeah, I think it's crazy too. I think a thing is that ATEEZ does do, I wouldn't say a lot of fan interaction, but they do try to, like, wave to their fans. Back to what I was saying about Wu Young. I think they genuinely enjoy seeing their fans. I think that's very gratifying for them. And I think because they genuinely enjoy it, I think because they're from a small company and they're so grateful that they have fans of this nature, like, they've overcome so much. Like, seeing fans is very gratifying for them. At the concerts, seeing them up close, seeing them dancing to their songs, seeing them singing along Korean songs, like, all over the world. I think that means a lot to them, and they do a good job of, like, waving to everyone. I will tell you, I've been on the floor before, and you can absolutely pretend that however many waved directly at you, did some finger guns towards you. Because they just kind of do it in the crowd generally. Maybe they're doing it to someone specifically, but you can for sure pretend it's for you. And I've seen people do it. So I think because of that, like, there is a certain type of fan that's attracted to that. But I don't think that's an atiny thing. I think that might be a K-pop thing.
I don't think it's even a K-pop thing. I think there's also just a fan, just a music fan in general type of thing. There are people who just are desperate to be acknowledged by this famous person, and I don't understand it because that's just not my personality. I'm not going to sit here and judge it because I don't know. But I do think that, I don't know, I just feel sometimes like there's something special about ATEEZ. I think we've said before they're the best group with the worst fandom. And I think that that's true. I think there's something about them just being so wholesome and so talented, but also with that extra element, because a lot of K-pop idols are wholesome and talented. As much as everybody wants you to believe that they're all terrible people, I don't think that they are all terrible people. I think some of them are, but I don't think they all are. And I think that just the fact, and the thing is ATEEZ is proved over and over and over and over and over again, story after story of how they're just the sweetest people backstage, that, they're kind to people who work for them. They are kind to people that they encounter, that they're so giving and loving. And I think there's that, plus this added element, like you said, that they've overcome so much. And I think this is why ATEEZ are so protective of the small company narrative.
Right.
And I think it's one of the things that they're right about. That we celebrate every tiny little thing because there was no guarantee we were ever going to get that tiny little thing. Whereas when you come from a big company, it is guaranteed that you're going to have a fandom, you're going to have commercial success, because your company has reach. And ATEEZ never had that. They are the reach.
Right. It's not to say that like a group from a big company doesn't work just as hard, isn't just as hardworking, just as kind. Like, that could all be true, but it's just a different starting point.
Yeah.
And to like not acknowledge that, I think, is silly. And yeah, I agree. Like, this is the atiny narrative that I'm like, ATiny, you tell
you're
them.
Right. You are right about this
You're
one, y'all.
right.
You're good. You have my support.
Defend their honor. I agree. Because that's one of the things I love about ATEEZ beyond their music, and I find it emotionally gratifying to see hardworking people who are not guaranteed success work hard in spite of the lack of reassurance that they would have success, to work so hard knowing that they could fail. And if they failed, it would probably be the end. Like, if you are in a small company and your debut doesn't go well and your group fails, like, I don't know that you come back and get a second chance. So to watch them do that, like, I find that emotionally gratifying as a person. I find it inspirational. I find it to be one of those things that it's like my heart instinct kicks in. And so if you start talking about like, oh, well, these other companies had it just as bad, I'm like, well, get out of here. I will give that to like ARMY, because for sure BTS overcame a lot to get to where they are. I won't give it to TXT.
No. And that's fine. They don't need it.
Right.
They don't need us to give that to them. They have so many things already. I'm like, this is like the one thing that I will gatekeep forever, that these groups from these big companies they don't have we win the struggle Olympics. We win them. We win.
We get to have that.
We get to have that. You don't get to take that away from us by trying to create sob stories about how hard it was for your idols at the beginning, because not in the same way. I'm not saying they didn't have struggles. I'm not saying it wasn't difficult. I'm saying they didn't have the same struggles that we had to overcome. And by we, I do mean me and ATEEZ.
Here's the like big picture thing. Life is hard for everyone.
Yeah.
It's hard no matter what you do, no matter who you are. You have your own problems and your own struggles. It is undeniably harder for some because they are not set up from a place of success. You can be set up for success and still fail. Like, it's true that a big company group could not find a lot of success, but they're set up for success.
I'm like scanning my memory like, who?
I'm not saying they're going to disband, right? But it would be reasonable for a company to put out a group and have it not see as much success as other groups. Like, they might not be as successful. They might not be the biggest group just because they came from a big company.
Right. But they would be guaranteed some kind of career.
And they would be guaranteed some sort of promotional deals. that ATEEZ were never guaranteed. No one was no skincare company at their debut was like, here baby, put this makeup on your face. Like, that just didn't happen. Wasn't gonna happen. And like, yeah, all groups struggled, all groups work hard. It's not the same way.
No.
And I think these big festivals, like, I wanted to cry during this big festival. They're singing, like, Win as the opening number. Win as the opening number was perfect. So perfect. And I was just like, yeah. Whenever they do a festival like this, I felt it during Coachella, too. They've come so far. Like, it just feels like that. They've come so far. I have watched them personally come so far. So at this point, it does feel like it's not my journey, but I feel it.
I mean, it does feel like we've been there. We've kind of suffered a little bit along with them in our own weird fandom kind of way.
I've suffered a lot of it.
I've suffered quite a bit. But that's why we celebrate all the small things. That's why, we're so grateful for every little award that they get, every music show. I know that like in our first episode that may or may not be our second episode, I was talking about music shows and why they didn't promote as much for Golden Hour as they normally do, and that I was glad that they didn't go on music shows. But at the same time, every time they win a music show, I'm excited for them, because that wasn't a guaranteed win. We've had to really work hard, and they especially have had to really work hard to get to a point where the show is a given, at least the first week and sometimes the second week. And
I also want to, like, shout out to atiny. Like, I know we joke about them being a bad fandom, and there are bad atiny's, but atiny's have worked hard to also see this level of success for ATEEZ. Like, I'm a bug streamer, so, like, I have worked for those wins. I have had to do things that I never thought I would have to do to help them get those wins. I know you're a voter as well. Like, these apps, these ads we've had to watch. Like, we have also worked hard in a way that a lot of fandoms don't have to, because we are smaller. We don't have a Korean fan base that does a lot. We've had to do things that are incredible to think about. Like, if I started telling people on the street, like some locals, about how I, like, am DMing these people on, like, WhatsApp trying to buy Korean streaming passes so that I can download an app illegally on my region locked phone, like like, it's all just like, atiny has worked hard too, and we've had to work hard in a way that is different from other fandoms. And I strongly believe that. And Cassandra and I joke about how ATEEZ is our sports team. Like, I've been here. I've supported them. I've watched all of their draft stuff. Like, I'm here, and they're my team, and I'm going to wear their clothes. When I go to their concert, I'm going to have their light stick. Like, that's my team. And I'm here for them. And they might make mistakes, but that doesn't mean that they're not my team.
That's why every little milestone, to kind of try to bring it all back together, every little getting the Instagram accounts and seeing, the mass amounts of followers that they get just all of a sudden is gratifying. Seeing them perform at Coachella and Mawazine and other festivals is very gratifying. Whether they are the first or not, it's still a big deal. Like, it's excellent that they are the first, but I don't think that that's the most important thing. I think it's the fact that they got
to be there. They were invited to the party.
Yeah.
I think we've talked before about how they'll make these lists, or they'll put together these compilations of, like, the best or the highest selling or whatever, and it's big companies and ATEEZ. Yeah, maybe we're not on top, but hey, we were invited to this party.
Yeah,
like, and that's incredible.
It's always that way, though. Like, there just isn't another group outside of BTS, but BTS has transcended those early days. They're in a whole other level. I don't think
a different and new category.
Yeah, they are their own thing. I'm not going to pull the ARMY thing and say that they're beyond K-pop, because I don't think that they are. They are still K-pop, but they are in their own category. And I don't think that I don't think that we're aiming for that category. I think that category belongs to them, and I'm glad that they have it. But the fact that, like all of these award shows and everything, the ATEEZ, I think that we've talked about this before, that a lot of the hate comes from the audacity of this small group company to be playing in the big leagues the way that they do. So, like, if you take out that understanding that they came from, that they're tiny little company and didn't have the big leg up at the beginning, if you take that out and you just only compare them to the big companies, yeah, it does look like they're new goo and like they don't belong in these big leagues, but they do. And I think it's really incredible. And I hope that people never lose sight of that everything that they've accomplished, even if they're not doing the big numbers, the big BTS numbers or the big Stray Kids numbers or the Blackpink or Twice or whatever you want to compare them to, even if they're not doing that level, they're still massively successful.
Massively successful. And it is hard to find a K-pop fan who hasn't heard an ATEEZ song. Right? Like, they might not be the biggest group, but everyone's heard an ATEEZ song. Everyone knows who ATEEZ is, that they have a fandom. Like, ATEEZ is successful. ATEEZ is great. Stan ATEEZ.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll be back with us next Wednesday and every Wednesday when we drop new episodes. If you enjoyed, please follow or subscribe to the podcast. You can connect with us at oldontini@gmail.com, follow us on Twitter at HalaChatPodcast, or read more from our blog at ontini.com. We'll see you soon. Be the light.